But let's move into the final segment, and that is 1 through 10 for 6 men for all 30 NBA teams. Let us know your thoughts on 6 men down in the comments below. We know we did not get this right, or everyone's going to agree on this. We didn't agree on this. This is definitely the most...
People don't agree on anything.
This is definitely the most opposite rankings that we've all had, at least for us three. So everyone's going to have their own opinions here. But let's start off with Dave. I'll give his 1 through 10. Ricky will give his own. I'll give my own, and then we'll do the cumulative. For Dave, at 10, he had Jeremy Grant of now the Denver Nuggets. At 9, he had Rudy Gay of the San Antonio Spurs. At 8, he had Marcus Smart of the Boston Celtics. 7, Fred VanVleet of the Toronto Raptors. 6, Dennis Schroeder of the Oklahoma City Thunder. 5, Terrence Ross, the Supernova offense for the Orlando Magic. 4, Bogdan Bogdanović of the Sacramento Kings. 3, Derrick Rose, now of the Detroit Pistons. 2, Spencer Dinwiddie of the Brooklyn Nets. And 1, the king of the 6th man, Lou Williams.
Yeah, no surprise here. Lou Will going to be number 1. But starting at 10 for me, Rudy Gay. Then at number 9, Spencer Dinwiddie. Number 8, Jeremy Grant. Number 7, Marcus Smart. Number 6, the supernova of offense, Terrence Ross. Then at 5, J.J. Redick. 4, Kyle Kuzma. 3, Derrick Rose. Number 2, T.J. Warren. And number 1, it's good to be king, Lou Williams.
All right, moving my 1 through 10. At 10, I had Thomas Satoransky of the Chicago Bulls. At 9, Jeremy Grant of the Denver Nuggets. 8, Goran Dragic of the Miami Heat. 7, Dennis Schroeder of the Oklahoma City Thunder. 6, my boy T.J. Warren, now of the Indiana Pacers. At 5, Spencer Dinwiddie of the Brooklyn Nets. 4, Fred VanVleet of the Toronto Raptors. 3, Marcus Smart of the Boston Celtics. 2, Rudy Gay of the San Antonio Spurs. And number 1, the king of 6 man, Lou Williams. Let's start off with Lou Will. I think this is the biggest discrepancy between 1 and 2 that we've had all year. Jokic and Embiid, that was a 1-point difference. For Kawhi versus Giannis, that was a 2-point difference. For LeBron versus everybody else, that was a 3-point difference. Then for shooting guards, James Harden definitely won by a lot, but he only had a 3-point difference as well. And going to point guard, Steph had a 3-point difference over Dame. So this is by far the biggest difference point-wise for any 1 over a 2. It is a 13-point difference. Lou Williams dominated.
Would you like the cumulative?
I thought you gave that.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
We went straight from you went straight into yours, right into what we're, because that's what you're used to. Sean's used to giving the cumulative.
Ricky, give us our cumulative rankings.
I was so ready to do it. And then you're like, let's go into it. I'm like, I guess we're not doing the cumulative. At 10, we have Jeremy Grant. At 9, the supernova of offense, Terrence Ross. Number 8, T.J. Warren. Number 7, Dennis Schroeder. Number 6, Derrick Rose. Number 5, Bogdan Bogdanović. Number 4, Sean, if you want to do the honors, are we going to do it once a podcast? You know,
yeah.
For number 4, it's
fucking Rudy Gay, man. Shit.
It's fucking Rudy Gay, man. Then at number 3, Marcus Smart. Number 2, Spencer Dinwiddie. Number 1, Lou Will.
I can't believe I did that. Do you want to copy and paste the Lou Will bit there?
Because I was saving it for the fucking Rudy Gay.
Saving what?
I was like at number 4.
Fucking Rudy Gay, man. Shit.
I wanted to save it for the end though, the last one.
Fucking Rudy Gay, man.
Yeah, at least let's copy and paste that Lou Will stuff that I was saying though. The 90 through 7.
I could just do it previously on the fast.
Yeah,
break.
it's the biggest discrepancy between a 1 and a 2 is Lou Williams versus Spencer Dinwiddie. 13-point difference for Lou Williams at number 1. Let's talk about him. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for me is like he defines what a 6-man is. And it's not because, he is the most talented on this roster.
Because he's a starter?
Huh?
Because he's like the best start. Like out of all these.
No, I don't think he is a starter.
You don't think Lou Will's a starter?
No, I think he is perfect in that 6-man spot, and he is better as a starter. And in the Clippers team, and I know it's going to be a different Clipper team than it was when he was starting in 2017, 2018. But in those starts, they were 12-7 in those starts. They had a 63.1 win percentage when Lou Will was starting, and they were 30-33 in all the other games he didn't start. That was a 47.6 win percentage. They were below 500 without him in the starting lineup, and with him in the starting lineup, they were great. But he is the definition of a 6-man because he just comes in there, he scores points, and he adds something different to this team, or at least he did last year, because they were more of a veteran finesse more skilled and polished team with their starting lineup. And then when it came to the 6-man bench, it was let's move fast, let's move quickly, let's go as hard as we can with him and Montrez, and they played absolutely phenomenal. And Montrez and Lou Williams probably are the third and fourth best players in their team, but it's mostly because of their roles and what they add off the bench. I don't think he really is a starter, and I just think he's constantly one of those guys that, he's never the bride. He's always a bridesmaid, but he's a fucking great bridesmaid. Like he'll do everything. Like, oh shit, you forgot your dress. I don't know anything about being a bridesmaid, but like, oh,
you're right.
You forgot your dress. I'll fucking drive 100 down and get your fucking dress, girl.
He's never
I'm
the one.
Stop with the fucking bride.
I'll
shit,
put it this way. He's never the one to bring the girl home, but he'll help you bring him home.
He'll bring he's not the. I disagree with that because he had 2 girlfriends at a point.
Okay, but I'm talking. He's a great wingman.
He's not the guy to bring 3 girls home, but he'll bring 2 girls home. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean Lou Williams. It's kind of like he's just been the senior for 5 years, but he's still the best player on the basketball team.
Red shirt senior.
He is the Aaron Diebler of the NBA. But he's fantastic, and 31 players last year scored 28 points per game or more, and 30 of them, the other 30, make an average of 28.5 million per year. Lou Williams makes 8 a year, and that kind of shows that he's not a starter. And the fact that they were able to get him for 3 years, 24 million, shows his worth. He is a very good bench player, and he's not like an amazing player to where he's jumping out of those 30 players, out of those 31 players. He had the worst field goal percentage. He had the 7th worst true shooting percentage. He had the 10th worst offensive rating. He had the 6th worst defensive rating. He is just an offensive guy, and even then he's not like a superb offensive player. He's just a guy that can score buckets for you, and he knows how to get to the basket, and he knows how to get himself open.
Are you a Blue Mountain State guy?
No.
Did you watch Blue Mountain State? I'm basically going to make this reference, and my Blue Mountain State people can maybe back me up. He's the Alex Moran of this team. Not the guy that's going to go out there and be like, hey, I want to be the starter. Hey, I'll go out there. I'm the backup. I get the trickle-down banging, get to bring 2 girls home at one time. That's what they call it in Blue Mountain State, trickle-down banging. Because, the starter gets it, then it goes to the second team, then the third team. Alex Moran was the 3rd starter on that football team for Blue Mountain State. But he can do everything you want, and I think we're kind of saying the same thing at the same time. Lou will. He's going to do everything you want. Doesn't necessarily, maybe he doesn't want to be the starter. Maybe he's like, you know what, I'm fine with this role because I do it very well. But the second guy you mentioned, I think is very interesting, and Spencer Dinwiddie, where you had him 5. Yep. Dave, and this is one where, like you said, I wish Dave was here to defend why he had him at 2.
Dave is the biggest fucking Nets and then I had him Spencer at 9. Dinwiddie fan.
But like for me, I feel like this is splitting hairs because I could almost switch him and Jeremy Grant and be fine with it. But everyone in my top 7, Marcus Smart brings too much defense off that bench for me to put him below Spencer Dinwiddie. Terrence Ross, maybe it's me just playing into the supernova of Terrence Ross and giving him some love, but maybe I could put Ross below. But other than that, like J.J. Redick, I think is going to provide a lot of scoring off the bench. Same with Kuzma. Derrick Rose, if he doesn't have any, I got to bring it up, he doesn't have any bone spurs in his elbow, Sean. If he can put 18 points up like he did last year off the bench for the T-Wolves, and it's like T.J. Warren and Lou Williams are like, I'm not going to be able to put Spencer Dinwiddie over those 2 guys.
And I let's get to the point. Like I want to get to the D-Rose stuff, but let's stick on Spencer Dinwiddie. Yeah. We won't jump around too much. At least for that, Dinwiddie I think is going to see a more relaxed role now that Kyrie Irving's there. I think it's going to be tougher for him to get into the lineup because they did trust him a ton when D'Angelo Russell was there. So I don't think he's going to be putting up like 17 points per game last year. I do think he's going to be super efficient, which is going to be nice. And he is a guy that can go and score buckets for them and get really hot. But I think his role is going to be decreased. And I think if we were talking Spencer Dinwiddie, from last year, and if this was the same team, I think he would be number 2 on this list. But I don't know if he's going to have that similar impact there, and I think his role is going to be decreased, but he's still a great player. And like you said, at least compared to the guys above him, Marcus Smart plays defense, and he adds something to that team that you're not able to. He's a guy that can guard guards on that team and do it fantastically well, where Kemba can't really do that. And the other three guys in that starting lineup are all wings, and Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. So Marcus Smart does bring something unique to a great team. And Rudy Gay is a guy that should be a starter. He's a guy that's going to put up nearly 15 to 12 points. And last year, he had a low scoring output for himself, but that team in the San Antonio Spurs weren't putting up a ton of points. But even then, he was massively efficient, and he was just dominating out there. That was one of his best efficiency years last year. So I think Rudy Gay is going to be super effective off the bench. But at least looking at Spencer Dinwiddie, I think his role is going to be decreased a bit, but I still think he's going to be one of the most effective bench guards in the league. And the reason why I have D Rose low is D Rose might put up 20 points, right? But D Rose is not going to play. D Rose is going to probably play maybe 40 to 50 games this year again. And I understand D Rose had a 3-point shot for 25 games, but I don't really care. D Rose is the same damn guy. D Rose is going to put up garbage points, and that's it. Like, is D Rose going to be on a playoff team?
I mean, do you think the Pistons are falling off?
I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team because Miami wasn't a playoff team last year and they got better. So I think that if anything, they're 7 or 8. But are they going to do any damage in the first round? No. So I don't really see them as a dangerous team. And Derrick Rose, I don't think adds that much to this team. He's better than Reggie Jackson, that's for sure. But like D Rose, I don't think I don't want D Rose as my starter. Like, I would rather take Spencer Dinwiddie as my starter over D Rose. I would rather have Lou Williams as my starter than D Rose.
But
I'd rather have
Derrick
Marcus Smart
Rose...
as my starter. I'd rather have Dennis Schroeder as my starter. I'd rather have Goran Dragic as my starter. There are more guys out there. Hold on, there's more guys out there on this list that I would rather have as my starter. I don't care that D Rose used to play in Chicago and is a former MVP and is a Hall of Famer to his family members, like you just said. I don't care about that stuff. D Rose is a guy that, in my mind, is extremely limited when it comes to scoring. He's limited when it comes to his defense, and I think he's absolutely overrated by this fucking podcast.
Well, here's the question I'm going to throw out to you then for what you said. When you rank 6 men, are you then throwing in the little, it might not be a big criteria, but are you throwing out the criteria of, well, if I want you to be a starter one day, then yes, you're going to be ranked higher than lower? Like, are you going to be ranked higher if you're like, oh, this guy can start, so he's going to be higher? Or is 6 men, like, because 6 men come off the bench.
Yeah.
Like, we're not looking to move them into a starting role.
My criteria is impact on a team, right? So what's your impact going to be? Lou Williams, while he isn't the most talented player on this list, he is a guy that adds something extremely unique to this team. He's the best scoring guard, and he is a guy that can put up 20 points. And I know that typically I'm a guy that thinks points per game is absolutely overrated. But I think
you can pad those stats.
Yeah, you can pad those stats. And it doesn't really matter because if you're putting up 20 points per game and not doing it efficiently, then it doesn't matter. It's garbage points. But Lou Williams, I think he does just add something where he kind of has that name power and he isn't massively efficient, but he can score and he can get hot. And having a guy that can put up 35 off your bench in a night, it's not every single night and it's not super efficient every single night, but when he can explode like that, he's going to help your team win and he's going to absolutely move that needle. And he's the only guy on this list, maybe him and Spence, that can put out that type of output and just absolutely light it up. And people I know are going to bring up, oh, Derrick Rose scored 50 in a game last year. It was one game and he's not healthy. So Lou Williams
Devin Booker also scored over 70 in a game. Big whoop. I'm agreeing with you that that's not like.
But I was just making the point, like, having a guy off your bench like Williams who can score a ton and like 50 or 40 in a game.
I was agreeing with you that
huge.
The 50, it's like, okay, just because he scored 50 in a game doesn't mean he's going to do it again.
I know I'm going to get shit for having Derrick Rose this low, and I don't really care. But, like, Derrick Rose had a 50-point game, and people are going to bring up the fact, well, if Lou Williams could do it, why can't Derrick Rose do it? Why isn't Derrick Rose higher? It's because Derrick Rose isn't trusted enough to be out there. Well, like, I don't trust him to be out there every single night, where Lou Williams has been doing this for year in, year out.
And that's why Lou Will's number one. He's Mr. Reliable for the 6 men. And for me this year, maybe it's a little bit of hope for Derrick Rose, but I look at this Pistons team and what is Derrick Rose going to be able to do for kind of one of the first times in his career since leaving the Bulls is, hey, he's going to be the main scoring option off the bench. Like, you look at their 2 unit, you've got Bruce Brown, who unproven. You've got Svi Mikhailuk, who good shooter, can add points, but He's not going to be your main scoring option.
No, he should be.
And
He's the
then
GOAT.
Markieff Morris and Thon Maker, shot taker, are not going to be. I know that's Ron Baker, but I like saying it for Thon Maker too. Markieff Morris and Thon Maker aren't going to be your leading scorer off the bench. So like that to me is Derrick Rose's role on this team. Be the number one off the bench and put the ball in the basket. Score those points when Reggie Jackson needs a rest, when Luke Kennard needs a rest, whenever you're putting that second unit out there. That's what you're going to get from Derrick Rose. And the question is, and this is the question of how high you would have him, is are we going to see last year Derrick Rose where he played 51 games, averaged 27 minutes? Yeah, I know he started for 13, but was injured. Or are we going to see the 3 years before? 9 games, 16 games, 25 games. And that was total between, 25 all of last season. That's what that was. Like, he hasn't played meaningful, 64 games was the last time he played that many, and that was in New York. So it's like, are we going to see, hey, give me 50-plus games? Or are we going to see the, 16-25 kind of a performance from Derrick Rose? And I think if he plays most of the games, he's going to be the number one scoring option off that bench and will definitely help that Pistons team and will not be a hurt. He'll only be a hurt if he is just that hurt.
I think it was
because he's glass.
He's absolutely glass, and I think it was an absolute mirage of what Derrick Rose did last year. I do not think
pan.
This is Derrick Rose. I think it was a flash in the pan. This is his highest offensive rating since 2011, 2012, right? And I know he's been injured since those days, and he hasn't been fully healthy, but in the past 7 years, he's not done anything like that. And I think he was getting such a high usage percentage last year because they didn't really have anybody to score. They couldn't trust Wiggins, and I understand that, this is a Pistons team that isn't that great as well. They do have Blake Griffin, they have Andre Drummond, but I don't think he's going to make that big of an impact. If I'm wrong on him, okay, but I think he's just massively overrated, and I probably have him underrated too.
Well,
but with this,
the thing I will say
with this, and this is the final thing I'll say on this, and you can finish
I'll
it up.
Jump in with my one thing.
And you end the Derrick Rose stuff. Like Larry Nance, if you have Derrick Rose above Larry Nance, I don't really care. Like that's fair. But Larry Nance is a very efficient scorer. He is extremely skilled at attacking the bucket, and I think that he is probably a better player if traded, and more impactful player if traded to a different team. He's not going to have that big of an impact for Cleveland, so if you want to put Derrick Rose above him because Derrick Rose is going to be on a playoff team, and he's probably going to help that playoff team, that's fine. Terrence Ross, both on playoff teams. I trust Terrence Ross in the playoffs because he's going to stay healthy, and we saw what he did last year. He earned the nickname of the Supernova offense. I trust the Supernova more than I trust Derrick Rose. JJ Redick, again, one of the most efficient three-point shooters, and he's going to add that to a team that's trying to vie for the playoffs. And we talked about his pairing next to Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday. It's going to be a perfect pairing, and he's going to fill perfectly out of that New Orleans team, and he brings something else that team doesn't have. Derrick Rose is very similar to Reggie Jackson. I think he's just a better player than Reggie Jackson, but I don't think he's going to add anything crazy different to this team. Kyle Kuzma adds shooting next to AD and LeBron, like we said. Marcus Morris adds a 4 that can shoot for the Knicks and play great defense. They don't really have that. They have Bobby Portis and Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle, guys that can play decent defense, and then Mitchell Robinson can play great defense, but those are guys that really make their buckets around the net. Bogdanovich brings skilled ball handling abilities at the 2 and the 3 for the Kings, and they're possibly a playoff team. Thomas Satoransky, we already said, is going to be probably the starting point guard for the Bulls, and he brings something else to that Bulls team that we really don't see in Chris Dunn or Kobe White. Jeremy Grant is a mirage when it comes to defense and three-point shooting. He's going to be a perfect add to that Denver team. Goran Dragic is likely a starter, and if he's healthy, he's exactly like Derrick Rose when it comes to ball handling and scoring. I just trust Goran Dragic to stay healthier, and he's been better and more consistent over the past couple of years. I project Goran Dragic to be better with Jimmy Butler than Derrick Rose with Blake Griffin. I think Dennis Schroeder is probably a starter in this league. He's just playing behind Chris Paul, and even then, if Chris Paul goes down, I think Dennis Schroeder would be absolutely fine in that starting lineup for OKC. He consistently puts up buckets. Like very similar players between him and Derrick Rose. And then TJ Warren, I think, is going to take a step up defensively because Indiana knows how to teach defense, and he really hasn't played great on a great defensive team ever because he's been on Phoenix. But I do think he's going to add defense and shooting to that team. He might even be the starter over Jeremy Lamb. We already talked about Dinwiddie. We talked about Fred VanVleet. We talked about Marcus Smart. I think impact-wise, you could probably make the argument for Rose over Nance. But outside of that, I think there's guys that bring different aspects to their team's game that they don't have, where Derrick Rose and Reggie Jackson have such an overlap that it's really just pick the best one. And I don't think either are that great.
Yeah, and first off, I had a mini heart attack 'cause I could not remember weeks and weeks and weeks ago. You started talking about OKC, and I'm like, oh, shit. Did we put Shea in the starting lineup? And we did, thank God. Because I'm like, if we didn't and then missed on Shea in some way. But the last thing I was going to say is, and this is not me throwing Dave under the bus, but it kind of is, in a sense. The thing you can say in this Derrick Rose argument is both you and I are consistent, Sean. Because if we look at last year, you had Derrick Rose at 26. What, he's 17 now for you? Mm-hmm. You had an increase because he had a better year, but you didn't do anything too crazy. For me, I had Derrick Rose at 5. A lot less of a jump to go up, but he went up from 5 to 3. Smaller increase, but still increased. Dave had him at 15 last year and then was like, top 3. Like, huge jump for Dave.
The reason why, though, is because you guys grew up with Derrick Rose. He was from Chicago, and you guys are Bulls homers.
Watched him in high school, watched him in college,
so
watched
the
him in the
fact
pros.
That he's this high for you guys is not shocking, and I'm sick. I hear about Derrick Rose all the time.
Apparently, you're the only thing
sick
keeping
of
this from being a Bulls podcast, although we have a Bulls podcast.
Yeah. So with that, am I too low on Derrick Rose? Yes. Are you guys too high on Derrick Rose? Yes. So hopefully the balance.
We met
out.
him in the middle.
We didn't because you guys
At
had him.
6.
You guys both had him at 3.
We met him in the middle at 6.
He should definitely be below Dennis Schroeder and probably Terrence Ross.
Should he be top 10 even in our cumulative?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he should probably be like 13. Anyways, let's move to somebody else. Anybody else, please God. Let's move to a guy that I'm very excited about, and that's going to be Jeremy Grant. I think this was a sneaky pickup for the Denver Nuggets to go out and get Jeremy Grant from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Something they really don't have is shooting at the 4, and now they have that. And Jeremy Grant has been able to add a 3-point shot to his game and become more consistent. And last year, he was lighting it up. And you might say, well, he was playing with Russell Westbrook, but now you're playing with Nikola Jokic, you're playing with Gary Harris, you're playing with Jamal Murray, you're playing with even Monte Morris and Malik Beasley, guys who can come off the bench and dish you some assists. And he's probably still going to get some open looks out there. And if he's able to shoot 36 to 39%, he's adding length, he's adding 3-point shooting, and he's adding defense to this Denver Nuggets team. And this Nuggets team is already disgustingly deep when it comes to the bench. And this is just going to add more versatility to their team. And I cannot be more excited for this addition. He's a guy that's finally coming into his own. He's going to be 25 this year. He's a guy that had 119 offensive rating last year and 108 defensive rating. This guy can add something to this team that they desperately needed in length at the 4. They didn't really have a consistent guy last year. They had Juancho Hernan-Gomez out there at the 4 at times. I think that was pretty much it. Cause, I was thinking Trey Lyles, but Trey Lyles has been gone off the team for a while. And they have a guy that is going to be a consistent player out there for them. He is just a natural defensive stopper. He's a guy that can even protect the rim as well to hide Jokic's inabilities at doing that. I absolutely love this addition, and I think he's going to be so fucking good on this team. I can't wait.
No, yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, where basically the biggest thing for me is you said shooting, and it's like, add more shooters, because that's what's going to fit in this team, where it's like, we talked about Isaiah Thomas earlier in the podcast, and last year coming to Denver, we were, because Dave and I actually, like Dave brought it up and I brought up our spreadsheet. You look at last year, we were really high on Isaiah Thomas because of what we thought he would do in this Denver system, where both you and Dave had him at 5 and 6 respectively. I had him a little lower, but still 12 based off of how he played last year. Even 12 was too high. And I don't bring that up because I don't think that Jeremy Grant is going to have that kind of a performance. I bring it up because the biggest thing in Jeremy Grant that's going to play into this, and you mentioned it with Isaiah Thomas, is Jeremy Grant going to fit into that system where we can say he is, but we all thought Isaiah Thomas would fit, and he didn't. So I'm not saying like Jeremy Grant's not going to fit, because I had Jeremy Grant at 8. I think he's going to have a good year. But can he fit, like you said, give them that shooting that they want and give them that defense to fill in for where Jokic can't?
The thing is that, and I know your point that we thought Isaiah Thomas could fit there. I thought that Isaiah Thomas could bring something different to that team.
And it was more wishful thinking,
I thought that he was going to be able to be a different player in that second unit. And he didn't fit with the system. And that was the biggest thing. But I do think Jeremy Grant fits in that system because Isaiah Thomas was his own player, right? And we thought Isaiah Thomas would be able to fit in that system just because of what he was doing in Boston, being able to run off screens and get open. But they're not a huge screen team when it comes to that. They really want guys, at least their guards, to create off of pick and rolls and stuff like that, and screens at least and then ball handling, where Isaiah Thomas is better running off ball screens. And I think Jeremy Grant, when it comes to pick and pop situations and driving and just standing in the corner and doing that, he's going to fit more naturally into this system, and that's why I think he's just going to be this good. That's why I think he's going to be consistent out there. He is a more natural fit in this lineup than Isaiah Thomas, and I think that's why we don't have to have those concerns like we did with Isaiah Thomas, because another thing too, Isaiah Thomas wasn't healthy.
Could he be the type of guy maybe that Fred VanVleet was to the Raptors, where it's a bench player that is giving them something to push them over the edge in a deep Western Conference, and a Western Conference that may be up for the picking with the Warriors being injured this year?
I'm not going to argue that, Denver Nuggets can win the finals, because fuck yeah, they can. I think it doesn't hurt them when it comes to a Millsap injury, which happened last year. It won't hurt them when Millsap leaves. And it also gives them a stopgap for Michael Porter Jr. to get ramped up. And when it comes to...
And Bol.
When it comes to Michael Porter getting ramped up, let's give Bol the ability to get ramped up for his 1 year before he starts getting ramped up. He needs a ramp up to the ramp up. But looking at where they struggled last year, they struggled in spacing the floor in the playoffs and having that second guy step up. And another thing I think they do allows them to do is, if Will Barton isn't good like he was last year, they can throw him in at the 3 because he is so versatile. So it just gives them versatility. And that's key when it comes to the playoffs, is having guys that you can throw out there and give different looks out there. And if you want to go small, you can go small, because he can even play the 5. So you could throw out a lineup there with Gary Harris, Jamal Murray, Barton if he's efficient, and possibly like a Malik Beasley or a Monte Morris. Like they could provide a lot of different looks and a very small look if they want to. I don't really know who would play that 4 in that situation. I threw out Morris and Beasley. I don't think they'd probably be the 4. Probably be Barton, but he might even be too small. But again, if they wanted to go small, they have that opportunity.
Who the hell, refresh my memory with the Denver, who was it in, I can't remember who they were playing, in a playoff series that got into a fight, and it was like, I remember the announcers calling it like goonish behavior.
Jokic? Was it Jokic versus Cantor?
No. It was, Was it
last year?
Yeah, it was last year, where it was one of their guards. I know it wasn't Beasley. I don't think it was Will the Thrill. I don't think it was Craig. Because I remember,
it could be Torrey.
Was it Torrey Craig? Or Torrey Craig? Torrey Craig? That's just the one thing that right now in my mind, I'm like, oh, who was that from last year? They got into kind of like a little scuffle at the end of like a meaningless game. Like, meaningless meaning they were going to lose that game. I think it was in the Spurs series, maybe. May have been second round. I don't know. Comment section, help me out, because that's a random thought that I just had while you were talking about the like Michael Porter and Bol and like how Jeremy Grant fills in. It's like, did that guy leave the team? Is he still on the team? I don't know. Useless thought from Ricky.
Yeah,
you got to get one of those a game. I'll look it up and find it.
Yeah, I cannot tell you who that would have been. The only thing that I remember that was slightly iffy from any player from the Nuggets last year was Jokic on the block for the free throw. Let's bring up one guy finally to wrap up this podcast. I'll bring up TJ Warren. I mentioned a little bit earlier. He finally added a three-point shot, and they're going to look for someone to replace Bojan Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic was a fantastic defender and turned out to become a great scorer for that Indiana Pacers team, a surprising scorer. Already, TJ Warren has that ability. TJ Warren is a guy that...
It was Torrey Craig. It was the game 2 against the Blazers. That's what it was.
What happened?
I'll remind you exactly because I'm going to pull up the YouTube video. I'll remind you after I watch it.
Anyways, TJ Warren has proven that he could be a scorer already in this league. He's averaging 15 on his career, but he's put up near 20 before and 18. That was on a bad Suns team, so I wouldn't be shocked if he came in and put up near that 14 mark for the Pacers this year. But the addition of his three-point shot last year is absolutely huge. And I think the biggest thing that I like from him is he's already proven that he can force turnovers. And if he can become a smarter defender and make sure that he stays in front of guys, I think that he can be a huge addition to this team. He's clearly showing that he has the ability to work. And if he is working on that defensive side, he can go out there and he's going to be a massive impact to this Pacers team. And I think the biggest sign for them is we know that teams do scouting. These teams have fantastic scouting departments. They know more about the NBA than we do, even when sometimes we don't think that. Shout out to the Wizards. But they know guys that have these frameworks and these mindsets and their work ethics. And I think they're taking a shot on TJ Warren because they think they could take the step defensively. And if he does so, I think we're talking about a guy that can be a top 5 to top 3 six-man next year. And I think that right now he's not there yet, but offensively he's proven that he could be efficient from the outside and from the mid-range. And if he's able to add that defensive element to his game, he could be a fucking phenomenal player in the NBA. And I truly do think that he isn't there yet defensively, but I'm very intrigued why the Pacers picked him up, and I think they probably see something in him that they can mold and turn into a next-level player, and I hope that happens for TJ Warren.
So, before I get in on TJ Warren, I watched the video. Wasn't what I was thinking about. That was the one where Cantor bumped into Torrey Craig when he had the mask on in the playoffs after the free throw knocked him over. And then they had the scuffle of like, hey, why are you fucking knocking over my guy? But no, with the Pacers picking up Warren, like, for me, I think that he is going to be a guy that it's going to be interesting with him because I feel like he's going to start at the beginning of the year, but then be a bench role. And I look at their second unit and it's guys that are, to me, unproven. And yes, I know Jake's going to get mad. TJ McConnell is their point guard in the second, but like their second unit is like TJ McConnell, Edmund Sumner, who you have said nice things about.
Shout out Xavier.
Doug McDermott, which at this point it's like he's a backup guy. He's a bench guy. TJ Leaf, Goga Patazde, who they just drafted. So it's kind of like I look at their second unit after Vic comes back, because that's how we set up our lineup for their best one. After Vic comes back, it's like, well, yeah, TJ Warren is going to be the guy that they lean on in that second unit. My big question is, can he continue to shoot the three ball? Because the big thing last year that we all freaked out about, especially like, what was it, game 1, game 2? I think it was game 1 for the Suns. Like, we were texting in the, called the Wet Boys, text group between you, I, and Dave, and you were like, holy shit, TJ Warren can shoot threes all of a sudden. Like, can he consistently do that now another year, or will it be like, man, when TJ Warren had that year where he was shooting threes at a high clip, he really knocked it down that year. Yeah. Can he keep that up?
I think the fact that he's playing with Brogdon, he's playing with Vic, I think he's still going to get open looks, and I think that it might not be 42%, but I think he can be consistent throughout the season and hopefully
stay above
league average.
Does he still average 4 attempts a game?
I wouldn't be
being
shocked if that
the
goes
sixth
up.
man? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the attempts are going to change too much. The thing that I did like, too, was that he was pretty consistent throughout the whole season. 48%, 43%, 41%, 39%. Took a dip off from 48%, but still, I mean, he was still around 43 to 39% in November, December, and January. So you can't be upset at that. If he could stay healthy, I would love to see what TJ Warren could do for this Pacers team. Final guy you want to bring up, who is it?
Last
End the
guy.
podcast strong.
Last guy, supernova of offense, Terrence Ross. And the reason why I bring him up is to bring up a conversation that Dave and I had yesterday at dinner.
Yeah.
And I know we'll get more into this in teams. I know we'll get more into this in predictions. But because on Superfans, we talked about, can the Bulls make the playoffs? Can the Bulls be a playoff team
you did.
next year? And
Of course you guys fucking did.
we had to do it on Superfans because Sean wasn't there. Talked Bears, talked Bulls. And one of the conversations we had, and it continued into dinner, is the Orlando Magic. Are they going to be a team that falls off? And by falls off, it's like, oh, they didn't make the playoffs this year. They're like 10th, 9th, instead of 7 or 8. Kind of bringing Terrence Ross into this. How much of it is going to be, because it's not going to be all on him. He's a sixth man. But what are the expectations for Terrence Ross this year for Orlando? Because they were actually like, oh my God, we're the 7th seed. Like, is Terrence Ross going to get better and this team get better? Or is it going to be, hey, Terrence Ross is doing exactly what he did last year, but this team takes a dip and they're not a playoff team?
I don't think that Terrence Ross will define if they're a playoff team or not. It's dependent more on their point guard position. DJ Augustine's their current starting point guard. I don't know if he is that impactful of a player.
Dave mentioned Markelle.
Yeah, he was very good last year, but there is Markelle waiting in the wings. If Markelle shows any flash, I think they go to him in a heartbeat. Can they get consistent minutes out of him, and can they get consistent minutes out of DJ Augustine? If they can, that's a great step in them repeating, going back to the playoffs. Another aspect of that is how good will Evan Fournier be? Will he take a step off? I think the biggest question mark will be Jonathan Isaac. Can he stay healthy, and can he take that next step and grow? And if all of those things happen, I think they will lock themselves into a playoff spot. If 2 of those 3 things happen, I think that they'll probably be a favorite for a playoff team spot. If Isaac's not able to take that step and DJ Augustine isn't consistent and Fournier stays the same, I think that this team could probably miss the playoffs. But I would favor the Magic, and I don't think Terrence Ross really will define that, but
Will he shoot 7 threes a game like he did last year?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There's no reason not to.
Because, I mean, I look at that, and that's probably, to me, the one bad spot with Terrence Ross is...
Shot 38% from
I know, but I use air quotes for our audio listeners only because it's like, I would prefer... It's like free throw percentage for me. I would prefer it to be above 40. Like, 38's not bad.
38 is well above league average.
Oh, I know. But I'm saying, like, that's the one thing he could do to get better than last year.
Shooting 40 is ridiculous.
Oh, I know. But I'm talking about if I want Terrence Ross, if you want him to be better than last year, that's where he does it in my sense. He makes more than 2
That was a
threes
career
game.
year for him. I don't think he can get better than what he was last year. So if he stays in what he did last year, I think Orlando Magic fans would be extremely happy with his output and his production. If he repeated his year last year, I think he would be absolutely golden with Magic fans, and I'd be fine with that as well. He doesn't need to bump that up. I think if he stays around that, he'd be fine. Anyways, that's going to do it for the podcast. Let us know your thoughts of our rankings down below. I'll probably get shit for the Derrick Rose stuff. What are you going to get shit from, Ricky?
For me, Derrick Rose being too high.
So
Jabari Parker being too high, Fred VanVleet being too low.
That's the one I think you're probably going to get the most
I'm going to
shit on.
get shit for all my rankings.
Yeah. And then what do you think Dave's going to get the most shit for?
Derrick Rose being too high, Terrence Ross being too high, and maybe for...
Warren?
Maybe a little sad. I don't think he gets hate for Sado.
I think I might get hate for Satoransky.
Yeah. I'm going to say, if anything, Laker fans come after him. Kuzma at 14 seems kind of low.
Yeah, I could see that. Think Dave probably had the best rankings?
No, I mean, together we had the best rankings because it's 6 men. No one had the best rankings. It's 6 men.
We're going to be wrong at something, so let us know what it is down in the comments
Can't
below.
wait
Anyways.
for coaches next week.
Oh, coaches. I get more excited for coaches than 6 man. I can't wait to defend Quinn Snyder again. I love that dude. That's serial killer.
Do you think Steve Kerr will still be? No, Steve Kerr wasn't number 1. Brad Stevens was for that playoff performance.
You regret that?
No, not really.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Okay, I do. Steve Kerr should have been number 1.
No,
Brad
it's
Stevens
Greg
number-
Popovich. What are you talking about?
Where did I have?
What are you talking about?
Do you remember?
Are we doing this again? Do I have to scream at you about Popovich again?
Do you remember where I had?
Where
him
have you
last year?
been for the past 22 years?
Do you remember where I had Greg Popovich last year?
5.
No. Do you want the name? You want to know the names I had above him last year? Brad Stevens,
Jesus.
Steve Kerr,
My God.
Mike D'Antoni,
What?
Quinn Snyder,
Fine.
and Eric Spoelstra. I had Greg Popovich at 6 last year.
I don't want to do coaches.
And I had Tom Thibodeau at 9, and he got fired.
What the fuck, dude? How many of the coaches that you had in the top 10 made the playoffs?
Stevens, Kerr, D'Antoni, Snyder, Popovich, Nate McMillan, Dwayne
Miller
Casey.
was in your top 10?
Yeah, he was number 7.
What
and then
the
Budenholzer. The only ones that didn't were Tom Thibodeau and Eric Spoelstra.
I think you have to get negative points for the fact that Tom Thibodeau got fired. God. I had Popovich 1, Stevens, Kerr, Snyder, D'Antoni. I had Spoelstra, Carlisle, so there's 2. Gentry, there's 3. McMillan. Yeah, so you had more playoff coaches than I did because you threw in Dwayne Casey there.
Yeah. Dave had Thibodeau didn't, Gentry didn't, Spoelstra didn't. Dave had 3 who didn't. Did you have 3 who didn't?
Yeah, 3 that time.
Okay.
But none of it. I didn't have a guy who got fired. So
I don't know
I'll
if I'm
take
going to
that
have
victory.
Greg Popovich as low as I did last year. I think that was basically coming off the Kawhi stuff I was upset about. I think that's why. I think I was in Kawhi's camp more than Greg Popovich's camp. More of like you handled the Kawhi situation wrong. I think that's why I had him so low. And you know Ricky loves to die on his molehills. I'll make mountains out of them,
Let us
too.
know what you think about 6 men rankings. And we have coaches next week for Ricky Widmer. I guess I have to thank you, although you don't know Greg Popovich's fucking value. And I got to thank you guys for watching and Dave Oster for participating in our rankings list as well. We'll see him next week. I will also probably get some...
That's why I did it.
What?
Because Kerr and Popovich were tied, and I wanted Kerr and the cumulative to be above. So Popovich was at 84, Kerr was at 85. That's why I did it.
And do you know who Popovich's representative for 6-man rankings was?
Fucking Rudy Gay, man.
Yes, that's going to do it for 6-man rankings. Shout out Rudy Gay, shout out Dave, shout out Ricky, shout out me, and shout out to the patrons at patreon.com/podcast and everybody listening and watching to this podcast, whether on Block Talk Radio, iTunes, or YouTube. Thank you very much for participating, helping, and supporting the channel. Hopefully you love it too, but at least if you're watching, we thank you very much for that. So thank you very much, and we will see you next week for Coaches.